After the stormy night settled into a trembling silence, the house on Willow Bend Lane felt emptier than ever. The Wilson family sat in the dim living room, eyes swollen, hearts restless. Their 8-year-old son, Liam, had been missing for 40 hours, and every ticking second felt like a blade carving into their hope. A German shepherd named Thor lay by the door, refusing to eat, refusing to sleep, refusing to leave the spot where Liam usually sat. Thor was more than just a dog, he was Liam's shadow, protector, and best friend. And now, he sensed something the humans couldn't understand. The police had done their search. Neighbors had scoured the woods. Flyers covered every lamppost in the small town. But there was no sign of Liam. It was as though the boy had been swallowed by the shadows of the storm. Sarah Wilson stared at the window, her hands trembling around a lukewarm cup of tea she couldn't drink. "Why isn't he home?" she whispered. Her husband, Mark, placed a fragile hand over hers but said nothing. Words had lost their meaning. Thunder growled in the distance, leftover anger from the storm. Thor's ears perked up. He stood abruptly, pacing toward the front door. Then he did something he had never done before. He raised his paw and tapped on the window with a sharp, urgent rhythm. Sarah startled. "Thor, what are you doing?" The dog tapped again, harder, faster, as if trying to speak through the glass. Mark walked to the door, opening it halfway to see if Thor wanted to go out, but the dog didn't move. Instead, Thor shoved past him and tapped the window from the outside now, staring directly at the couple with fierce determination. Something in the dog's eyes sent a chill all the way through them. Thor turned and sprinted toward the backyard, glancing back only once to make sure they were following. Sarah rushed after him. Mark grabbed a flashlight and followed, heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. Thor led them to the back fence and tapped again, this time on the wooden boards, scratching insistently in the same spot. Sarah knelt down, running her fingertips along the cold wood. "There's nothing here," Mark murmured, scanning the darkness beyond the fence. But Thor wouldn't stop. He scratched, whined, looked at them with something close to desperation. Sarah's breathing stuttered. "He's trying to tell us something." Mark hesitated but eventually grabbed a hammer from the shed. Thor's tail thumped once, approving. Mark began removing the loose boards, revealing a narrow gap that led into the dense forest behind their property. Thor slipped through instantly. Sarah's heartbeat hammered as she followed. Mark helped her through before climbing after her. The forest was dense, damp, and eerily quiet. Thor ran ahead only a few feet at a time, turning back to ensure they kept up. His paws moved with precision, as if following a scent so familiar it called to the deepest corners of his soul. They walked for 5 minutes. 10, 15. The cold pressed in. The moon barely lit their way. Then Thor stopped. His ears flattened, his head dipped low. A soft whine escaped his throat. Sarah stepped closer, her breath catching. Is something there?" Mark held the flashlight higher. A small shoe lay half buried under a heap of fallen leaves. Sarah fell to her knees, fingers trembling as she picked it up. Liam's name was written on the heel in blue marker, his handwriting. Her sob hit the air like a knife, sharp and broken. "Where is he?" she choked out. Thor sniffed the ground, pacing in circles. Then he bolted deeper into the woods. Mark scooped Sarah up, and they followed as fast as they could. Branches snapped underfoot, and the wind carried the dog's echoing barks forward like a haunting beacon. The forest opened into a rocky ravine where the storm had washed down mud and debris. Thor stood at the edge, barking relentlessly. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. There, at the bottom of the ravine, was a small figure curled under a fallen tree trunk. "Liam!" Sarah screamed his name, her voice tearing through the night like a flare. No movement. No response. Mark's legs moved before his mind did. He slid down the muddy slope, nearly falling, clawing his way toward his son. Thor followed, skidding beside him. Mark reached Liam first, lifting the tree limb with shaking strength and pulling his little boy into his arms. Liam's skin was cold. His clothes were soaked. His face streaked with dirt and dried tears. But his chest moved. A faint breath. Sarah collapsed at the top of the ravine, sobbing uncontrollably when she saw the small rise and fall. Mark cradled his son close. "Liam, buddy, Daddy's here. We're here. You're safe now." Thor nudged Liam gently with his nose, whining softly. Liam's eyelids fluttered. His lips parted, voice barely a whisper. "Thor found me." All three cried at once. Mark lifted Liam carefully as Thor watched every step, making sure nothing and no one could harm his boy anymore. They climbed out of the ravine. Thor stayed pressed to Liam's side the entire time, never leaving him even for a breath. The ambulance lights flashed red and blue through the trees minutes later, painting the night with hope and urgency. Paramedics rushed in, wrapping Liam in blankets, checking his pulse, warming his body, whispering soothing words. Sarah held onto her son's hand as though she would never let go again. One paramedic looked at Thor. "This dog saved him." Sarah nodded through tears. "He's always protected him. Tonight, he fought for him." Thor sat close, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, mud coating his fur, eyes locked on Liam as paramedics carried him toward the stretcher. He refused to move until Mark placed a hand on his back and whispered, "Come on, boy. He's safe now." Thor finally stood, walking beside them like a soldier escorting a fallen hero. At the hospital, doctors worked for hours. Hypothermia, exhaustion, dehydration, bruises, but no broken bones. No internal damage. He would recover fully. Sarah sobbed into Mark's chest when the doctor said the words she'd prayed for, "He's going to be okay." When Liam woke up the next morning, Thor lay sleeping with his head on the edge of the bed, exhausted from the night's vigil. Liam reached out weakly, resting his small hand on the dog's head. Thor's eyes opened instantly, ears lifting. "You came," Liam whispered. Thor licked his fingers gently, tail thumping on the floor. Mark and Sarah watched from the doorway, hands intertwined, tears in their eyes. Liam looked up at them. "I heard him barking, last night, before I fell asleep. It made me feel like I wasn't alone." Sarah wiped her cheeks. "You were never alone, sweetheart." The family stayed wrapped around Liam for hours, whispering prayers of gratitude, kissing his forehead, listening to the steady beeping of machines that reminded them how close they had come to losing everything. Days later, when Liam was finally strong enough to go home, Thor didn't let him leave his sight for even a second. The moment they walked through the front door, Thor tapped the window once more, just one gentle tap. Mark smiled softly. "Your signal, huh?" Thor wagged his tail. From that day on, every morning, Thor tapped the window once. And every time Liam giggled, tapping back from the inside. It became their ritual, their promise, their secret language of protection and love. Neighbors still talked about the miracle of the German Shepherd who saved a child's life. But to the Wilson family, Thor wasn't a miracle. He was family. He was loyalty and fur. He was the heartbeat that kept their hope alive in the darkest night. And every evening, when the sun dipped behind the trees and the house fell into peaceful quiet, Sarah would look at Thor lying beside Liam's bed and whisper, "Thank you for bringing him home." Because some heroes don't wear capes. Some heroes have paws.